Hello, it's me. So what is it that scares you? Is it ghosts and goblins and monsters? Is it math? Is it taxes? Is it eating vegetables? Well, for me, what scares me is the potential of the puzzle that got away. The one that you just couldn't wrap your head around, the one that you just couldn't solve. And it might not be the puzzle that you expect. It might be something that looks simple enough, looks easy enough, and yet there's something about it that's brand new or something not derivative of anything else. So, I'll tell you what scares me on this Halloween day. You've seen these ghost cubes. We've went through the 3x3 ghost cube, the 4x4 ghost cube. The one that scares me is this guy, the 5x5 Professor Ghost Cube. The puzzle that almost got away. Well, sort of. In any case, the thing about this ghost puzzle, like with most, especially when you add the layers, is the key here is being alone in the dark, being isolated. Most of the time when you solve a puzzle, like say a 3x3, you can do your first layer where they're a derivative of other layers. So in other words, I can tell what the cross is supposed to be and everything because it can line up with the next layer. Well, the problem with ghost cubes is because you scramble it and solve it just off center before placing it on center, you cannot rely upon the other layers. So you are alone in the dark. You have to look at each layer as an individual. Something of an exception was the 4-layer one, because notice the centers here still occupy the same plane. So I could easily and comfortably place all my centers and then put in my tops and bottoms. My version of the 5-layer ghost cube, I'm not going to be that fortunate. As you can see, it has the ghost organization, turning each layer individually, but notice the centers. These are actually the centers over here, 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 and here. They're off-center too. So I can't put in the centers as easily as I did with my version of the 4-layer. Now I realize there's other versions of 4 layers which are more like this, where the centers are off-center and you can't put them in individually like that. So as I'm doing this, say this is a center over here, how would I know that? How would I know which one lines up with which? And the answer is you can't. So the thing about this puzzle is each layer has to be done individually. Each one of them. So literally it's like you're alone in the dark and just hope that when it comes together it's going to agree with the other side. Now, the best way to do this, the best way to solve this and to go through it is you really can't do the higher layer versions unless you have an understanding of the organization of the 3-layer version. There is a typical ghost cube pattern that you're going to have to see, and it is going to be important to just have an understanding of that. The top and the bottom layer are going to be easy enough to potentially deal with because the centers are true centers and you can reduce centers easily. Even the edges can be reduced just fine. So you can get a full side here with no problems. The issue, same thing with the bottom layer here, the issue is these middle layers. How do I know what goes where? And that has to do with the process where I have to reduce the centers segment by segment, layer by layer, and not as a group. And once I do that, then put them in appropriately. You can see that very quickly it's going to get kind of confusing. The strategies are no different than any 5x5. It's really just a question of assembly and perspective. So, shall we do it? And now the question is, do I put this whole side in including edge reduction before I finish my center reduction, or do I do all centers and then put edges in? Well, I think we'll discover that as we do it. This is not a puzzle I've solved numerous times. I have solved it, but it's just too complicated to solve it too many times. So we're going to dive into it, and we're going to dive into the scramble and see about navigating our way through this thing. Okay, so let's start going through the scramble with this a little bit. Like a typical ghost, I have to line up centers with centers, edges with centers, all that good stuff. So these are centers over here. I can move this across here, here, and with, like I say, with any puzzle there's a learning curve. So this actually should be primed to start doing some of my scrambling. You have to make sure it's lined up okay. The movement of this puzzle is very, very good. You just have to make sure it's lined up. The start is potentially a little difficult, but here it is over here. We'll move this down like so. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure that centers go with centers, edges go with edges. So we're over here. Now I'll say that 5-layer mods, generally speaking, are easier to move and easier to navigate around than 4-layer mods. And I think that has to do with the fact that they're just very different kind of puzzles, and a lot of times mods are use East Chain puzzles to do that, which I guess is a cheap puzzle to work with. Maybe it's easier, but I got to tell you, it's kind of rickety and it's prone to collapsing, or it's prone to becoming unstable. Which is why I was glad when I'd finally solved this guy and can move on to the 5-layer version. So now I am going through the process of hopelessly, seamlessly, throwing caution to the wind, scrambling this guy. Am I nervous? Yes. Am I shaking? A little bit. Because once I do this, the inevitable question is, can I get it back? Okay, so you can see that it just takes a couple of scrambles, it just takes a couple of movements to really get this jumbled up, typical looking ghost puzzle type chaos. So I'm going to go ahead and take this porcupine and keep scrambling it, and we'll come back after that. Abracadabra. Okay, there we have it, a scrambled Professor Ghost Cube. 5x5, 5-layer. So how do we start off with this? Well, what I'm going to try to do is try to do center reduction as best I can. And I'm going to start with the top layer and the bottom layer. And it's a question really of figuring out which goes with which. And it's going to have to be based upon knowledge of what the top and bottom layer looks like over here. You can see it has a typical shape over here. You got the large house here, the small triangle over here, and put them in top and bottom, and hope that provides some perspective. Now, it's fairly easy to recognize which pieces are going to be a top and bottom piece because they tend to stick out like this. So these guys stick out, this sticks out over here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be trying to match these things together, This has a look that might coincide with, say, this, and you'll find that there's a very consistent ghost shape, like that's over here and over here. So really there is a good amount of trial and error that happens with these things. But I'm going to find a central piece, because it's even layer, I'm going to make use of that. So I see this central piece that's coming up out of here. So this can be the nidus around which I form the rest. Actually, here's a central piece, and this one is already in place over here. So I can find others that might bind to it. So once you get perspective with it, you can kind of find a way to navigate your way around. So will this come into here in some way? Well, let's turn and see if it bonds to here. Not here, so maybe somewhere else. Maybe it comes over to here. So I'm just going to turn. Part of the reasons why I demonstrate these is just to show the motion of that. And you can see this fits pretty well over here. So I think we're doing okay with this being here. Now there could be some equivocation of pieces. Maybe this actually goes back over here. But now I know that this is the top and this is the bottom, because unlike a 4-layer or a 6-layer, this is already predetermined, predisposed. So how about this? Does this find its way here? This is actually another edge piece. It's almost like doing a 3x3. So this is big enough to maybe come into here. Turn this over here and go splat. And yes, so we're doing okay over here. So it's easy to find these pieces. It's not too difficult. And now we have to get something into here. Maybe it's this one. This one looks like it belongs on one of these top layers here. Turn and turn it in, and nope, this doesn't belong over here. So this trial and error process will continue. Okay, so is this piece. This piece, I want to see if I can roll it into here. So move this down like so, and move it up, and see if we like it. And aha! Looks good. So now we know that that's the corner piece over there. So to move it in, I'm going to bat this out of the way. And again, it does move well, but pieces do snag. It'll do that with these these mods, where you're extending pieces ever larger outwards to make ever bizarre and scary shapes. Okay, so this fits in nicely over here. There must be some other area of the brain that focuses on shape instead of color. Okay, so now we have a corner center over here. And that's what we do, step by step. So now what comes into here, we can start focusing on that. Now this one obviously isn't the correct one because it's facing the wrong way. How about this? Turn this one in. Try this. Yes, this one seems to fit just fine. So what I'm going to do is bump this out of the way. Again, with these puzzles, you have to make use of all your layers. Now, it doesn't mean that that's the only piece that can fit in there. It just might be that I'm reducing this wrong. I might be falsely equivocating. I wouldn't call it parity because it's even layered, but I may have put in a piece that doesn't quite belong here. But anyway, there that is. So you can see I have a whole section of my center. Whoa, and you can see it's starting to look a little bit more like a section of this center over here. This and this are starting to resemble each other. So I've got the edge in here. Now I need the corner parts of the center. So moving on to the next center, I've already have this right here for me. So this one obviously comes somewhere to here, I think. So we're gonna work on this center next. And let's see where this might fit. There's a little notch over here that you can see, and there's a little notch over here too. So it seems like if I turn this like so, we'll move this in, see how we're doing. Nope, not good there. Now this one might not belong, but at least I know it's not in this layer here. So far as I know. Again, there may be some false equivocation going on. But let's turn this around here. I still hold out some hope that it might be this guy. Turn here, and yeah, okay. I think I can buy that. So for now, we'll put that in. This one might belong here, but in the center, but somewhere else. So I'm just gonna move this down across and move it back. So with that said, let's see if maybe I can fit that one somewhere. Turn this over here and see if this can make it down here. So this is the easiest part of the puzzle, so don't let that fool you into a false sense of security. Does this belong here? It looks like it might, but I don't know. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say it doesn't. So what else might belong? This one is kind of jutting up a little bit, so there's that possibility, but I think there's bigger fish to fry. What about this guy? That's a possibility. So let's turn this over here and move this in and see what we got. This one fits a lot more cleanly, so I'm going to say that's the case. Turn this like so, and then turn it back so I can get the center back here. And let's see what else we got. This one might find a home, but I'm going to say no because if I put it in from here, there's really no place that it goes over here. So let's move on to this side. This big guy. Now this one has to come somewhere. Move this like so. And again, this just kind of whets your appetite. Puts you into perhaps what you can call a false sense of security about this puzzle. Do we like this? Yeah, I can sort of see a triangle forming over here. So let's bat this one out by moving it twice and moving it down. Another thing about these giant puzzles is that it takes a little bit of effort even just to hold it. What about this? Can this slide into this spot over here? Let's see. And I'm not so sure about that. I'm going to say no. How about over here? Some big guys here. Now, what I might be able to start doing is maybe putting these guys in, because I'm pretty sure this corner part of the center probably slides in here somewhere. So what I could do is maybe see if this belongs over here by just moving it in to here, and we like that. So because of that, now that I've already got this in here, I'm going to move it here. Then turn it. This is again typical big center solves. Move this out of the way. Turn it back. Bring this back. So again, this is a little more than a 5x5 solve at this point, putting in centers. Not doing anything different, and this comes in over here. All right, so we filled these guys in, and I think we're liking that. Okay, so what I'm trying to maneuver is to see if maybe this guy can come over to here. I'm not going to be messing up these, so let's just wheel it in since we're not focusing on centers. And yeah, this is okay. But this is only part of the story. I have to find the other one that comes over to here if I'm going to fully reduce this part. So let's see what's on the side that's of long stature. How about this? So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say that this here is an actual edge that we have. Now what I can do is I can take this and just move it up to here for now so that I kind of keep it out of the way. Or better yet, just bear in mind that it's there and not try to destroy it. So what other edges can I use? How about the one that's kind of like this, the equivalent that's going to be on the other side, which is this. So I'm looking for, now this is a side piece, so there's another long center piece, probably this one. So I'm going to say that this belongs here. This part of the triangle is going to complete this part of the triangle. Now what I might be doing might be completely a dead end, and this reductive technique this early on might not be the best policy, but we'll see. So bring this here, and then bring this over here. So let's see if this matches down to here first before I do anything. So if I move it down, this fits here quite nicely, so I'm good. And now that I've already moved it down, just bump it out of the way. Substitute it with this. Again, typical 5x5 strategy. And turn it in. So again, so far you haven't seen anything new. I didn't destroy this, but now I put this in. So now I have to find this part of the piece. And that's going to probably look a lot like one of these guys. Just kind of this oblong trapezoidal thing. Not these two, I don't think. These are going to go in one of the middle layers. Possibly this. This looks kind of small, but that just might be what I need to match up with this over here. So let's put this in. Let's move this into position and just see if it comes down okay. So the geometry of this puzzle is important if we're going to make any headway. I move it in here, and I kind of like that. I think we got something going on with that. So let's go ahead and continue our motion here. Turn, 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 and up. Now you want to keep checking yourself because it's easy to get yourself lost in the dark. Anyway, this is good. This is good. So we have two edges to choose from. These two. So now what we're going to do is what those two edges that I put in are equivalent to. They're equivalent to this, and they're equivalent to this, these two. So now let's find an equivalent to something that's straight down like that. Because we have that on this side here as well. That shouldn't be too hard to find. It's going to be things like this. So that we can easily put in. Here's this one, and there's going to be a long one and a small one. So I think this is going to be long. Now bear in mind, this is not an edge, this is a center, this is an edge. So we're going to want to put them in correctly. So let's maneuver this up, turn and turn. And let's see if it aligns with this over here. So turn it down, and no, you can see that there's a little cleft there. Which doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't belong with this, it just might mean it belongs on the other side. So I'm not putting it in wrong, I'm not going to end up with a parity. I'm not even going to end up with any placement issues because I can visualize that it's not correct. So let's move this up over here, across here, and now we'll see if it comes down in this angle. I'll bat this one out of the way, move it down, and no. So this doesn't belong with this at all. So let's find another one. Here's something else that's straight. So let's move this guy in and see if maybe it belongs. So does this belong down here? Again, bump this guy out of the way. Move it down, and sure, that looks pretty good. The only problem is I can't have this one up above, so turn, or I'll end up destroying it. Turn. Turn, turn, and up. Okay? So I couldn't help but notice these guys here, so I think maybe this one is the next one to go in. I think we're in position. Turn it down and see what happens. So it's all just kind of coming together. So this looks good over here. So I think we're going to say that these, now I might have to flip these two. I don't know. Maybe I'm dealing with a little bit of a parity here. This is a 5x5. You're not supposed to get parity, but I don't know that I can really visualize if one is supposed to be there or not. Find my way to moving this one down. There we go. Turn, and up we go. Alright, so we're going to say that this one is in. So now we have the two equivalent edges. We have this and this on both sides. Now I need to get these guys, trapezoidal sides. And let's just see if it will find a home here. Turn it down and not quite. Close, but not quite. So perhaps something that looks like this. Let's see. Okay, there's this guy over here. Let's move this in and see if maybe this will fit the bill. And turn it down. And we like this better, so I'm going to move this in. And then turn, and up. Alright, so this is good over here. Now we're going to find the other one. Now this is pretty flat, so there's probably one around here somewhere. Okay, so let's see if we can match this one up. This does have a little bit of a divot here, but I think that's okay because one of the sides has that. Not this side here, but you see a divot over here. So maybe that's what this is. But in any case, it wouldn't belong on the top if it didn't completely fit. So we'll move it down, and we kind of like this fit. That looks like it's pretty good. So turn, and up. Okay, so we are within one edge left of being done with the top and the bottom side. So turn, and then turn. Got to move this out, unfortunately, but it did serve its purpose. So if you're wondering what goes where on a puzzle like this, you could use the corners to guide you. And turn. I guess we didn't have to turn because these aren't in anyway. Okay, so the next one that comes over here is going to be a smaller trapezoidal piece like this. And then we go boom to get it here. Bang. Zoom. Splat. And kaplow. Okay, so let's take stock on what we've got and what we've done. If all went well, then what we have is we have all of the top side edges done, which means I can move them to the top side. Now, as I look at this and audit my work, I don't like this over here. This has too much of a cleft over here. Must have looked like the best thing at the time, but not so sure I like it right now. Here, so this one resembles this. Maybe it's the right one. See if we like it better. Turn, and yeah, the cleft is all but gone. So I think we got it. So we start off with a theory, take it to its conclusion, and if we find that it doesn't fit, then we must let go of our theory and try another one. Turn, and up. Because at the end of the day, you're going to get closer to where you need. So these are all here. Now, it doesn't matter to me if they're on the right level or not. All I wanted to do was get them out of the way from down here.